Before beginning the story, I'd like to say a big thank you for visiting my new channel. I'm going to be uploading alternate history-related stories every single day. If that sounds good, be sure to leave a like and don't forget to subscribe. It means a whole lot when just getting started. I hope you enjoy the story. There's a question that's been bothering me since I was a kid, and nobody has ever given me a good answer. Between 1969 and 1972, we went to the moon 6 times. 12 men walked on its surface. We planted flags, collected rocks, drove a buggy around, and broadcast it all on live television for the world to see. It was the greatest achievement in human history, proof that humanity could do anything it set its mind to. And we just stopped. Think about that for a second. We conquered the moon, proved it could be done, and then we packed up and never went back. For over 50 years, not a single human being has set foot on that surface. The official explanations have always been budget cuts, shifting priorities, public interest fading after the novelty wore off, politicians deciding the money was better spent elsewhere. But none of that makes sense if you think about it. We didn't stop exploring the New World after Columbus. We didn't abandon aviation after the Wright brothers. When humans achieve something incredible, we build on it. We push further. We don't just quit. My name is Wade Copeland. I'm 36 years old, and I drive long-haul trucks out of Tucson, Arizona. I spend most of my life on empty highways under open skies with nothing but the road and my thoughts for company. And I've learned the real reason we stopped going to the moon. We didn't lose interest. We didn't run out of money. We were warned to stop. And my uncle, Eugene Copeland, was one of the men who received that warning. Uncle Eugene was the black sheep of the Copeland family, though not in the usual way. He wasn't a drunk or a gambler or any of the things that typically earn that title. He was just quiet, distant, the kind of man who showed up to family gatherings, sat in the corner, and left early without saying goodbye. He worked for NASA from 1965 to 1973, not as an astronaut. Eugene was a communications technician at Mission Control in Houston, one of the dozens of men in short-sleeved shirts who sat at consoles during the historic missions, monitoring signals and keeping the lines open between Earth and the spacecraft. When I was young, I thought he was just shy. Some people aren't comfortable in crowds, and I figured Eugene was one of them. My parents never pushed him to be more social, and I learned not to ask too many questions. Looking back now, I understand that Eugene wasn't shy. He was haunted, carrying something he couldn't share with anyone, a weight that separated him from the rest of us in ways we couldn't see. He never married, never had kids, lived alone in a small house outside of Houston for almost 50 years after leaving NASA. When I visited him as a teenager, I remember thinking how empty the place felt. No photographs on the walls, no decorations, just furniture and silence. Eugene died last year at 79. In his final months, his mind started to deteriorate. Dementia, the doctors called it. His thoughts would scatter, and he'd say things that didn't make sense. At least, that's what everyone else thought. I wasn't so sure. During my last visit, a few weeks before he passed, Eugene grabbed my wrist with more strength than I thought he had left. His eyes were clear for just a moment, focused on mine with an intensity that made my skin crawl. "They answered," he said. "We sent our signals out there. and something answered, and nobody listened to the warning. Nobody remembers. Then the clarity faded, and he was gone again, mumbling about frequencies and coordinates and things I didn't understand. The doctor said it was the disease talking, random neurons firing, creating connections that weren't real. But I couldn't shake the feeling that Eugene was trying to tell me something important. Eugene left everything to me. I was surprised at first. We weren't that close. I'd visited him a handful of times over the years, mostly out of obligation. But I was the only one in the family who'd ever shown any interest in his work. When I was a kid, I'd ask him about the moon landings, about what it was like to be a part of something so incredible. He never told me much, just smiled sadly and changed the subject. Now I understand why. Among his possessions was a locked filing cabinet that had sat in his bedroom for as long as anyone could remember. Heavy, metal, the kind they used in offices back in the 60s. My father wanted to hire someone to break it open, but I found the key first, taped to the bottom of Eugene's desk like he'd been waiting for someone to look for it. Inside the cabinet, I found audio tapes, dozens of them transferred from the original reel-to-reel recordings onto cassettes sometime in the 80s. Each one was labeled with dates and mission names that I recognized from history books. There were also transcripts, typed pages covered in handwritten notes in my uncle's careful script, photographs that I'd never seen in any documentary or museum exhibit. And there was a letter addressed to me. I opened it with shaking hands. "Dear Wade," it began. "I've kept this secret for 50 years. I'm tired. Someone should know the truth before I'm gone. What you will find in this cabinet will be hard to believe. I know because I was there and I still have trouble believing it myself. But it's all real. Every word, every recording, everything happened exactly as I've documented it. I'm sorry to put this burden on you, but someone needs to know why we really stopped going to the moon." I started with the audio tapes. The first one was dated July 1969, the Apollo 11 mission, the one everyone knows about. Armstrong and Aldrin on the surface, Collins orbiting above, the whole world watching. Most of the recording was routine. Communications between the spacecraft and Houston. Technical jargon I only half understood. The kind of stuff you'd expect from a moon landing. Then there was a segment I'd never heard before. The tape captured a conversation during the lunar descent. Armstrong's voice came through, tense in a way I'd never heard in the official recordings. "Houston, are you receiving the other signal?" A pause, then a voice from Mission Control, equally tense. "Affirmative. We're analyzing now. It's getting stronger the closer we get. What do you want us to do?" Another pause, longer this time. "Continue descent as planned. We'll advise if anything changes." Then nothing. Both parties went silent for almost a full minute. When the conversation resumed, they were talking about landing coordinates like nothing had happened. I played that segment over and over, trying to understand what I was hearing. The transcript in the filing cabinet filled in the gaps. During the lunar descent, both the spacecraft and Mission Control had picked up a transmission. Not from Earth, not from any known source. A signal coming from somewhere on the moon itself, from the side facing away from Earth. Eugene's handwritten notes described the chaos in mission control. Nobody knew what they were hearing. There were no protocols for this, no procedures to follow. The decision was made at the highest level to proceed with the landing, but to keep the signal classified. What they heard wasn't random noise. It wasn't some natural phenomenon bouncing off the lunar surface. It was structured, repeating, intentional. It was a message. The tapes continued through the subsequent missions. Apollo 12, 13, 14, all the way through 17. Each one encountered the signal. Each one received the same message. By the later missions, the astronauts knew what to expect. They were briefed before launch, told about the transmissions, instructed on how to respond. Which was to say, they were told not to respond at all. Acknowledge nothing. Focus on the mission. Pretend it wasn't happening. But Eugene's transcripts included debriefing sessions with the returning crews. Men who had walked on the moon describing what it felt like up there. They all said the same thing. The feeling of being watched. A presence that they couldn't see but couldn't ignore. The sense that something was aware of them and did not want them there. Some of the accounts went beyond just feelings. Astronauts described lights moving on the horizon. Not the sun, not reflections, but independent sources of illumination that tracked across the surface in ways that didn't match any natural explanation. Shadows in craters that didn't align with the terrain. Shapes that suggested depth and structure where there should have been nothing but rock and dust. One transcript from Apollo 14 made me put down the papers and step outside for air. The astronaut described seeing something in the distance during a surface walk. Structures, he called them. Not natural formations. Geometric, angular, built by something with intention and purpose. He reported it to Houston. The response was immediate and firm. Ignore it. Focus on your objectives. Do not photograph it. Do not approach it. Do not speak of it again. He followed orders. They all did. But they remembered. And some of them talked about it in the classified debriefs that Eugene recorded and kept. The signals changed over time. In the beginning, they were simple, repetitive tones in mathematical sequences that the analysts eventually decoded as a basic message. Stay away. Leave. This place is not yours. By Apollo 15, the transmissions had evolved. Eugene's notes described the analysts working around the clock, trying to understand the new data. The signals now contained visual information, images encoded in ways that took months to fully decode. What they saw terrified them. Pictures of Earth, detailed, accurate, showing continents and oceans and city lights on the night side. Images that could only have been taken from above, from orbit or beyond. Then pictures of destruction, cities burning, coastlines flooding, skies choked with smoke. Not a threat exactly, not a promise of what would happen, a demonstration of capability. Whatever was sending those signals wanted humanity to understand something very clearly. They could reach us whenever they chose. They could do things to our world that we couldn't prevent or survive. They simply hadn't chosen to, yet. The messages made clear that this restraint was conditional. Stay away from the moon, and Earth would be left alone. Return, attempt to establish any permanent presence, and there would be consequences. After Apollo 17, the decision was made. The program was cancelled. No more missions, no more landings, no more human footprints on the lunar surface. The official story was budget cuts and shifting priorities. The American public had lost interest. The Soviets weren't competing anymore. There was no reason to keep going. The truth was that someone very high up had looked at the evidence and made a choice. Whatever waited on the moon was too powerful to challenge. The warnings were too clear to ignore. For the first time in human history, we reached for something beyond our world and were told to stop. And we listened. Eugene spent the years after leaving NASA trying to understand what they'd encountered. He wasn't supposed to keep any of it. The recordings, the transcripts, the photographs, all of it was classified at levels that didn't officially exist. Taking copies was a crime that could have put him in prison for the rest of his life. He did it anyway. The filing cabinet contained decades of his personal analysis, notes and calculations and theories, all written in his careful handwriting. A lifetime of work done in secret, trying to make sense of something that defied human understanding. His conclusion, refined over 50 years of study, was simple and terrifying. The moon wasn't empty. It was occupied. Not on the surface. The surface was just a shell, a facade of barren rock and ancient dust. But beneath it, in caverns and tunnels that human instruments could barely detect, something lived, something old, older than humanity, maybe older than Earth itself. Eugene believed they'd been there for millions of years, possibly longer, watching the solar system, watching Earth, watching life evolve and civilizations rise and fall on the blue planet below them. He didn't know what they wanted. The signals were clear about boundaries, but vague about motives. They didn't seem interested in invasion or conquest. They just wanted to be left alone. And they wanted us to stay on our side of the void. The moon was theirs, had always been theirs, and humanity's brief visits, those 12 men who walked on the surface between 1969 and 1972, had been tolerated only because they were temporary. Any attempt to return permanently would be treated as intrusion, and the response would be something we couldn't survive. I finished reading my uncle's files over the course of a week. I barely slept. I barely ate. I just sat in his empty house, surrounded by decades of secrets, trying to process what I'd learned. Then I turned on the news, and my blood went cold. The new space race is everywhere now. You can't avoid it. Private companies announcing lunar missions. Government programs restarting after 50 years of silence. Talk of permanent bases, mining operations, stepping stones to Mars. Everyone is excited. A new golden age of space exploration. Humanity reaching for the stars again after decades of being stuck in low Earth orbit. I watched the coverage and felt sick to my stomach. Eugene's letter explained why he'd kept these files all these years. He always believed the truth would need to come out eventually. He watched the decades pass, watched humanity forget what had been discovered, watched the people who made the decision to stop the Apollo program grow old and die. The institutional memory is gone now. The men who heard the signals, who saw the images, who made the choice to stay away, most of them are dead. The rest are so old that nobody takes them seriously. Nobody remembers why we really stopped going to the moon. And now we're going back. Eugene's final warning haunts me. They're watching, he wrote. They've always been watching, and they remember the promise we made, even if we don't. I'm just a truck driver. I don't have connections or credentials. I don't have a platform, but I can read, and I can search, and I can put pieces together. In the months since finding my uncle's files, I've been looking into the new lunar programs, not the press releases and the promotional videos, the technical documents, the scientific papers, the reports that get buried in databases nobody reads. There are signals again. The probes we've sent to the moon in recent years, the unmanned scouts preparing for the crewed missions to come, they've detected transmissions. The same frequencies Eugene documented 50 years ago. The same patterns. Scientists are calling them anomalies, unexplained phenomena, subjects for further study. They have no idea what they're hearing. The institutional knowledge is gone. The records are classified or destroyed. The new generation of space engineers, brilliant as they are, have no connection to what their predecessors discovered. They're walking into something they don't understand. I reached out to anyone who might listen. Journalists, former NASA employees, space historians. Most ignored me. A few responded with polite dismissal. One old engineer, a man in his 80s, who'd worked at Mission Control during the Apollo era, agreed to meet with me. We sat in a coffee shop in Houston, two strangers connected by secrets that should have died with the men who kept them. He confirmed everything in Eugene's files. He was there. He heard the signals. He knew what they meant. Then he told me something that made the coffee turn to acid in my stomach. The signals have changed. The transmissions being picked up by the new probes aren't just warnings anymore. The tone is different. The structure is different. The old engineer looked at me with eyes that had seen too much and said a single word: countdown. Whatever patience the things on the moon once had is running out. They've watched humanity for 50 years, waiting to see if we would honor the agreement, waiting to see if we would keep our distance. Now they see the new missions being planned, the bases being designed, the rockets being built, and they're letting us know that time is almost up. I don't know what to do with any of this. I have a filing cabinet full of tapes and transcripts. I have my uncle's lifetime of research. I have confirmation from a man who was there. But I have no way to make anyone listen. The programs are too far along. Billions of dollars committed. Launch dates scheduled. The whole world excited about humanity's return to the moon. What am I supposed to do? Stand on a street corner with a sign? Write letters to senators? Start a blog that nobody will read? I'm a truck driver from Tucson. I'm nobody. And even if I could make someone listen, would it change anything? The money is spent. The rockets are built. The astronauts are training. The wheels are already in motion. Humanity is going back to the moon, whether the warnings are heeded or not. I spend most of my nights on the road now, long hauls through empty desert, nothing but asphalt and darkness and the hum of my engine. It's peaceful in a way, quiet, gives me time to think. The moon follows me wherever I go. I never paid much attention to it before. It was just part of the sky, a familiar presence that I'd seen my whole life without really seeing. Now I can't look away. It hangs up there, bright and silver and silent. Beautiful, I suppose, if you don't know what's beneath the surface, if you don't know what's watching. Sometimes, driving through the empty stretches of highway where the light pollution fades and the stars come out in force, I swear I can see things moving up there. lights that don't correspond to any crater or landing site, activity on the dark edges that shouldn't be there. I tell myself it's my imagination, tricks of the atmosphere, reflections, the normal optical illusions that come from staring at something bright against a dark sky. But I don't really believe that anymore. They're up there. They've always been up there, watching, waiting, and they know we're coming back. I'm sharing this because someone needs to know the truth. Not because I think it will stop anything. It's too late for that. The missions are happening. The return is coming. In a few years, maybe sooner, human beings will set foot on the moon again for the first time in a half a century. But when things go wrong, and I believe they will, someone should understand what really happened. When the first permanent lunar base goes dark, when communications are lost, when the official explanations don't add up, when governments stammer and scientists shrug, and everyone pretends they don't know what went wrong, someone should know the truth. We didn't stop going to the moon because we lost interest. We didn't abandon the greatest achievement in human history because of budget cuts or shifting priorities. We stopped because something told us to stop. Something ancient and patient and powerful beyond our comprehension made clear that the moon was not ours, that humanity's place was on Earth, not among the stars, that the void between worlds was not empty, and the things that lived there did not welcome visitors. And for 50 years, we were smart enough to listen. My uncle spent his entire adult life keeping this secret. It cost him everything: his career, his relationships, his peace of mind. He lived alone in that empty house for decades, carrying knowledge that he couldn't share, watching humanity forget the warnings that had kept us safe. Now that secret belongs to me. I don't know what to do with it. I don't know if there's anything I can do. The world has moved on. The old fears have faded. A new generation looks at the moon and sees opportunity, adventure, the next frontier. They don't see what my uncle saw. They don't know what's waiting for them. The space race ended for a reason. We made a promise 50 years ago, even if it was never spoken aloud. Stay away and be left alone. Now we're about to break that promise. I don't know what happens when we do. I don't know if the response will be immediate or slow, obvious or subtle. I don't know if it will be something we can survive or something that ends everything. I just know that it won't be the triumphant return everyone is expecting. The moon is beautiful tonight. I can see it through my windshield as I drive, hanging low over the desert horizon, full and bright, painting the landscape in silver light. When I was a kid, I used to dream about going up there, being an astronaut, walking where only 12 humans had ever walked, looking back at Earth from 250,000 miles away. Now, I just feel grateful that I never got the chance. There are some places we're not meant to go. Some doors we're not meant to open. Some questions we're better off never asking. My uncle understood that. The men who cancelled the Apollo program understood that. For 50 years, that understanding kept us safe. Now we've forgotten, and we're about to learn the lesson all over again. The moon hangs in my windshield, silent and silver and patient, and somewhere beneath its surface, something is watching, waiting to see what we do next.